Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta at sana patuloy yung
If you are just discovering this channel, then you have chosen the single most exciting moment in recent WTA history to plug in, because what has been unfolding at the 2026 Miami Open over the last week is not just a tennis tournament. It is a full-blown blockbuster movie playing out in real time on the sun-baked hard courts of Hard Rock Stadium in Florida. We have upsets, we have revenge arcs, we have comeback stories that would make a Hollywood screenwriter blush. And right at the absolute center of all this glorious chaos, standing tall, swinging big, and carrying the hopes of an entire nation on her young shoulders is the Philippine sensation herself, Alexandra Eala. Stay with us because this story has more layers than a Grand Slam draw. And by the time we are done, you are going to be jumping out of your seat. Let's start at the very beginning of this Miami chapter because context here is everything. Cast your mind back to the 2025 Miami Open. Alexandra Eala, barely 19 years old, arrived in Florida as a wild card, ranked somewhere around 140 in the world. A name that most casual tennis fans couldn't have picked out of a lineup. What Bell happened next was one of the most breathtaking Cinderella stories the WTA has ever produced. She reached the semifinal, upsetting world number 2, Iga Swiatek in the quarterfinals. Along the way, the tennis universe sat up and collectively said, "Who on earth is this girl?" She wasn't a wild card anymore, she was a warning, a declaration of war against the established order. She went home from Miami in 2025 as a new woman, a rising star who had announced herself on the grandest possible stage. Now, in fast forward to 2026, Eala enters this year's Miami Open following a round of 16 finish at Indian Wells, where she failed to check Linda Noskova, but the result still kept another strong showing for the rising star who has climbed to a career-high ranking of world number 29. And just to underline exactly how electric the atmosphere around this young Filipina has become, check out what happened even before the first ball was struck in anger at the tournament. The world number 29 reunited with Miami Heat basketball head coach Erik Spoelstra, a fellow Filipino sports icon ahead of the tournament in South Beach. On the very day of Spoelstra's 700th career NBA win, no less. Two Filipino champions, two icons of their respective sports sharing a frame in Miami. The symbolism practically leapt off the screen. The Philippines was already buzzing and the tournament hadn't even started yet. But here's the thing about arriving at a tournament with a reputation. The target on your back gets bigger. The draw doesn't care about your story. The hardcore doesn't care about your feelings. And the 2026 Miami Open draw was absolutely not going to give Alexandra Eala an easy ride. After a first-round bye, Eala found herself facing Germany's Laura Siegend in the round of 64. Now, if you don't know Siegend, let me paint you a picture. At 38 years old, Siegend is one of the most seasoned veterans on the WTA Tour. A grizzled competitor who has seen it all, done it all, and forgotten more about professional tennis than most players will ever learn. She doesn't crack under pressure. She doesn't make gifts of matches. She makes you earn every single point. And my goodness, did Eala have to earn it. She came out of the blocks flying, immediately imposing her rhythm by racing to a 3-0 lead in the first set, highlighted by an early break in the second game. She was dictating from the baseline with clean, aggressive shot making, putting the German veteran on the back foot from the very first rally. The crowd was electric, the forehand was thundering, and it looked for all the world like a straightforward afternoon in the Florida sunshine. Herb finish. Then Siegemund did what veterans do. She steadied. She stiffened her spine and clawed her way back into the match, game by painful game. The German carried her composure all the way into the tiebreak, surging to a 5-2 advantage behind precise shot placement and smart measured point construction. Eala fought back furiously, but in the end, Siegemund snatched that opening set in a tiebreak that left the Filipino corner wincing. What happened in the second and third sets was a masterclass in grit, resilience, and sheer bloody-minded refusal to quit. Eala struck first in the second set, breaking Siegemund in the third game to seize early control, moving ahead 3-1. She managed the set with noticeably more composure this time around, protecting her serve while keeping relentless pressure on the German veteran from the baseline, eventually closing it out 6-3 to force a deciding third set. And in that third set, with legs beginning to ache and the Florida humidity wrapping around both players like a wet blanket, Eala dug deeper than she has ever dug before. The final score read 6-7, 6-3, 6-3 in Eala's favor, the number that made jaws drop across the tennis world. Eala and Siegemund were on court for 3 hours and 20 minutes, the longest match of Eala's entire professional career to that point. 3 hours and 20 minutes of absolute warfare in the Miami heat. And when it was done, Eala walked off court, not broken, not depleted, but grinning from ear to ear. She had the absolute audacity to tell reporters afterward that she felt fresh as a flower. Alexandra, welcome back to Miami. It seems like how happy is everybody to have you back here? Last year was so special. Fresh as a flower, people. After 3 hours and 20 minutes of battling a 38-year-old veteran in sweltering conditions, the woman is simply built different. But hold on, because while Eala was grinding through that epic battle with Siegemund, something extraordinary was happening on a different court at Hard Rock Stadium. The tennis universe had been buzzing all week about a potential versus rematch in Miami. Cheering. The narrative wrote itself. Could Eala repeat her shock quarterfinal win over the Polish world number 3 from a year ago? The fans wanted it. The broadcasters wanted it. The social media algorithms were absolutely salivating at the prospect. And then Magdala Linette torched that storyline to the ground and danced in the ashes. Iga Swiatek crashed out of the Miami Open second round as the 50th ranked Linette fought back for a stunning 1-6-7 to 5-6 to 3 victory over the 6-time Grand Slam champion. Let that sink in for just a moment. The woman who had won Wimbledon and terrorized the WTA for years went home in the second round, and taken out by her own compatriot, a player ranked 50th in the world. It was first opening round loss at any tournament since the 2021 WTA Finals. Seismic? Absolutely seismic. Bell. So now the bracket crystallized into something nobody had scripted. No Swatch rematch. Instead, Eala would walk out to face Linette herself, the very woman who had just slain the dragon. Going into that round of 32 encounter, the history books were not firmly on Eala's side. Linette had beaten her twice before, once at the Abu Dhabi Open in 2024, and again at the Nottingham Open the following year, giving the Polish veteran a 2-1 head-to-head advantage. At 34 years old, Linette was the second oldest player in the top 50, a battle-hardened competitor who had reached a career-high ranking of 19, won 3 WTA titles, and collected experience that money simply cannot buy. She was riding a wave of pure, unstoppable confidence after dismantling the best player in the world just days earlier. She was not going to be intimidated by youth, by reputation, or by the roar of a Miami crowd. The build-up to the match was electric. The Philippine sporting public barely slept. Fans set alarms for the middle of the night to watch a round of 32 match at a WTA 1000 event, which tells you everything you need to know about how deeply invested an entire country has become in this young woman's journey. And Alex Eala came out and gave them every single centavo's worth of drama they could have hoped for. She dominated the opening set, sealing it in just 40 minutes flat. 40 minutes! That is the kind of crisp, clinical, and assertive performance you associate with the very top players in the game. She was precise, patient, deeply penetrating with her ground strokes, and utterly in control of proceedings from the very first game. Then Linette did what Linette does. She refused to roll over. After trailing 1-3 in the second set, the veteran rallied to take a 4-3 lead, starting to win 73% of her first serve points and applying relentless pressure on return. She was shortening rallies, doing all the little veteran things that make life desperately uncomfortable for younger players still building their tactical toolkit. There was a moment with Eala staring at a 4-5 deficit in the second set where the possibility of a 3-setter loomed very large. The nerves in the watching Filipino community must have been absolutely shredded. And then in that exact moment of maximum pressure, Eala showed everyone watching exactly why she is not just a flashy young talent, but a player of real developing substance. Instead of overhitting and going for broke, she leaned into her strengths. Depth, patience, and smart court positioning. She won a remarkable 76% of her second serve points during the match, a stat that underlined her remarkable ability to stay competitive even when her first serve was not landing. She held, forced the tiebreak, and then absolutely took Linette apart, surging to a commanding 3-1 lead before closing the match out comfortably. Final score 6-3, 7-6. Clinical, composed, ruthlessly, and beautifully executed. After the match, Eala reflected on what carried her through. She said that patience was a very key aspect of how she played that day, and she was gracious in her assessment of the woman she had just defeated, noting that Magda is such a fighter, and that every time she had faced her, Linette had put her in such difficult positions. That right there is not just sportsmanship. That is the language of a player who understands the game deeply, who respects what her opponents bring to music the table, and who knows that every single match is a PhD-level education in professional tennis. Eala is not just collecting wins, she is collecting wisdom. Now let's talk about what makes this victory so staggering in its full context, because the numbers tell a story that even the most casual tennis observer needs to stop and properly appreciate. A year ago, Eala arrived in Miami as a wild card ranked around number 140 in the world. She was an unknown quantity, a girl from the Philippines who had trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy and was trying to crack one of the toughest professional circuits on the planet. 12 months later, she returns to the same tournament as a seeded player, ranked world number 29, with enough wins on the WTA Tour to make even the most battle-hardened veterans respect her game. She has now beaten Linette twice in the same season. She survived what was the longest match of her entire career just days earlier, and then turned around and produced a composed, near-flawless performance against the woman who had just eliminated the world number 3. The trajectory here is not just impressive, it is genuinely historically remarkable. And the story has one more explosive chapter still to be written because Alex Eala is not done. Not even remotely close. Waiting for her in the round of 16 is 14 seed Karolina Muchova, a Czech player who is one of the most technically gifted and tactically dangerous opponents on the entire WTA Tour. The 29-year-old Muchova currently sits at world number 14 and reached a career-high ranking of number 8 back in 2023. I mean, just look around. It's beautiful on every corner. I don't know what more to say, it's just super nice here. Okay, well, you played great tennis. She is a consistent Grand Slam presence, highlighted by a runner-up finish at the 2023 French Open, and she captured the Quar Open title earlier this very season. This is not a soft stepping stone. This is a fully loaded, heavy-hitting, technically brilliant player who disrupts opponents with vicious spins, deceptive slices, crafty drop shots, and sudden net approaches that make even the best baseliners deeply uncomfortable. There is also a fascinating and stubborn subplot buried in the numbers surrounding this round of 16 showdown. Eala is still searching for her first WTA win against a Czech opponent, currently holding a record of 0 wins and 11 losses against players from the Czech Republic. 0 and 11. That is a number that demands attention and honest examination. It is not a fluke or coincidence. It reflects the broader challenge of facing one of tennis's most technically sound national pipelines. Players who are schooled in all-court tennis and ruthless in-match adjustments from the earliest age. Cracking that record against a player of Machova's caliber on this enormous stage would be one of the most significant individual victories of Eala's entire professional career. It would be the kind of win that does not just add ranking points, it rewrites a narrative entirely. And yet, if there is one thing the 2026 Miami Open has already proven beyond any shadow of a doubt, it is that Alex Eala does not bow to history. She rewrites it. She walked into Miami as a seeded player for the very first time and immediately delivered the kind of back-to-back performances that remind the whole watching world why she made that electrifying semi-final run 12 months ago. She survived a brutal marathon 3-setter against the seasoned 38-year-old in the Florida Heat. She then turned around and dismantled the giant killer who had just ended the entire tournament. And she did all of it while talking about patience, gratitude, and the privilege of competing at this level. But the maturity radiating off this 20-year-old is something else entirely. It does not feel like the maturity of age. It feels like the maturity of purpose. She knows exactly who she is, what she is building, and why she is out on that court every single day. Eala herself went into the Machova matchup with her eyes wide open and her competitive hunger fully intact. Welcome back to Miami. It seems like, how happy is everybody to have you back here? Last year was so special. She acknowledged Muchova as a great player who is doing really well, noting that she had watched one of her finals a couple of years back and had been genuinely impressed. She said that being in a position to compete against her is a real privilege and that it is going to be a serious test. A real privilege. A test for sure. That is not the language of someone shrinking from the biggest moment of her season. That is someone who cannot wait to get back out on that court and go to work. The broader picture of Eala's 2026 season makes this Miami run even more remarkable when you step back and look at it whole. She entered the Sunshine Swing, having already put together a stellar resume that firmly established her as one of the WTA's most exciting and legitimate rising forces. Her ranking climbed to a career-high world number 29. She is playing aggressive, high-percentage tennis that punishes shorter balls and exploits every opening with ruthless efficiency. And she is doing it all with a competitive fire that the crowds in Florida have fallen completely and utterly in love with. Every fist pump, every roar after a clutch point, and every confident stride back to the baseline after winning a big rally. This is not a player who is still figuring it all out. This is a player who has fully and undeniably arrived. There is something deeply beautiful and profoundly moving about what Alex Eala represents beyond the statistics and the rankings and the head-to-head records. For millions of Filipinos watching from thousands of miles away, setting alarms at 3 o'clock in the morning, refreshing score updates between work meetings and school classes, she is not just a tennis player. She is proof. Proof that a kid from the Philippines can walk onto the grandest stages in world sport and not just compete but dominate. Proof that the long, sacrificial journey through the junior ranks, the years at the Rafa Nadal Academy, and the lonely grinding through challenger events and WTA 125 tournaments in far-flung corners of the globe, all of it means something. Every single point she wins in Miami is not just a point on a scoreboard. It is a data point in the greatest sports story the Philippines has ever told. And trust us when we say this story is nowhere near its final chapter. The round of 16 showdown against Machova could very well be the defining match of Eala's 2026 season so far. Win it, and she is into the quarterfinals of back-to-back Miami Opens, having entered last year as a wild card and this year as a seeded and ranked force to be reckoned with. Win it, and she breaks that stubborn 0-1 record against Czech players that has been the one persistent wall she has not yet found a way to scale. You win it, and the conversation about Alexandra Eala stops being about potential and starts living permanently and comfortably in the present tense. The girl from the Philippines, the prodigy from the Rafa Nadal Academy, the woman who made 140 million Filipinos set their alarms for the middle of the night. She is ready for every single bit of it. This is the kind of sports storytelling that keeps us coming back season after season, tournament after tournament. This is why we obsess over every match, every stat, every press conference quote, and every clenched fist after a big point. Because every now and then, sport produces a story this pure, this electric, and this deeply human. And we want to make sure you never miss a single moment of it here on Court Vision Plus. Now, we want to hear from you, and we genuinely mean that. Do you think Alexandra Eala can finally break that 0-11 record against Czech players and take down Muchova in the round of 16? Can she replicate and even surpass her stunning semifinal run from last year? Or will Muchova's all-court wizardry and championship experience prove to be the wall that finally stops the Filipina sensation's Miami charge? Drop your predictions, your passion, your prayers, and your ticks in the comment section below, because we read every single one of them. And this community is genuinely one of the best things about running this channel. If you love this deep dive and you want to stay locked in for every twist, every upset, and every jaw-dropping development, as this Miami Open continues to deliver the goods, then do us a solid and smash that like button right now. It takes 2 seconds. It costs you absolutely nothing. And it makes an enormous difference in helping this channel grow and reach more tennis fans around the world. If you are not yet subscribed, what on earth are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and flip on the notification bell so you are always the very first to know every time we drop new content. We are Court Vision Plus, your courtside seat to the most dramatic, unfiltered, and fiercely passionate tennis coverage anywhere on the internet. Until next time, keep your eyes firmly on the court because Alexandra Eala is far from finished, and you absolutely do not want to miss what happens next. And Magdalette, you know how tough she can be. Other than this incredible crowd, what do you think got you over the finish line? Oh, I think patience was a very